Hey YouTube, what's going on? I am ever so slightly sick and it's 107 degrees today, so everything's happening at the same time. So I want to give you guys just a little bit of an update about a couple things and talk about my screw belt case in action. So let's talk about my little tiny updates. First of all, I finally got some yoga blocks for a couple reasons, but the main one was I want to use this under my euphonium when I play it. This gives a much better actual height rest to rest my euphonium on when I sit down. I've been using the same rolled up t-shirt for 10 years now and I like it, but it's not tall enough. This is actually much closer to the right height and the t-shirt's just so inconsistent. It's constantly coming unrolled. Really excited to use this. I've played with it for like 10 minutes. That's the first time I played this in like 2 weeks, so I have not put a lot of time into that, so that's pretty neat. I'm excited to try the yoga block. Maybe I'll make a video about that and euphonium ergonomics at some point. Second of all, before I left on vacation, which is where I've been for the last 5 days, got out my contra because I was like, hey, I'm not going to play this for a bit. Let's get in some contra time. So I got on my contra, put it together, and promptly broke the screw that holds the bell and the slide together. Obviously, this is just some handmade brass part made of 60 years ago. 1960 something, not quite 60 years ago. Like just under 60 years ago. This was made out of brass and it was not meant to handle the kind of torque that has been put on it over and over and over and over again. So now this has no screw. This is a little different than most trombones. Most trombones, when you put the slide and bell together, you can not do the nut up and they'll stay together. The nut is really just there to give you a little bit of insurance. Most trombones used to be just friction fit. You put them together and forget about it. This is a little different. The slide receiver and the slide don't really have any taper. They just fit together and they can move around, and then when you tighten this down, this actually clamps down on the slide and that's how they stay together. And if you don't have anything to clamp it with, you can't play it. So right now this is useless and I have two very well made German halves of a contra that I cannot play. Not a huge thing. Of all the things to break on an instrument, especially one like this, that's probably the easiest one to replace. So sad, but not a giant deal. And then lastly, I just went on vacation. So I flew to my family for the 4th of July and I decided to give my screw belt case field test. I would take a horn with me anyway, and why not bring the most travel sized one that I have? Honestly, this is the smallest thing that I own now. So I did 2 flights with it, I played it a bunch, I drove around with it and stuff, and I'd have to give it pretty much like an A+. This thing is awesome. The coolest thing is, one, it comes with this music pocket. I took the music pocket off because it makes the horn look a little bigger with it on, and I didn't really need this storage. I usually put like the lubes in here and like my pliers and any music, and I didn't bring music and I put the rest of my stuff in my backpack, so didn't need that. And that makes this case look tiny on my back, and wearing it the correct side up, now that I've figured that out, this thing is tiny. It honestly looks like I'm playing some kind of string instrument. A real string player would be confused because the case is too big to be a violin case, but not wide enough at this end to be a viola case. So they'd probably assume that I just have the nicest ukulele case ever, or I'm not really sure. It just doesn't look like it would fit any normal string instrument. But the average airline person isn't going to realize that, and they just think, uh-oh, that's a violin. Just get out of their way, let them take it on the plane. This case is also, well, obviously it's smaller, but it's also lighter just because it is less case than the stock base case. There's just less to it. So the case is lighter, and I can still fit a bunch of underwear and socks in here, which is what I always do when I fly, travel. Gives it a little bit of extra padding, and it's just extra storage. Why not use it? So I put a bunch of stuff like under the bell, and there's just like in every nook and cranny I had more sundries. The only downside that I could really find is that getting the horn out and putting it together does take way longer than you're used to if you play trombone. Usually, you get out the two parts, put them together, put your mouthpiece, you're good to go. With this, I have to get out the bell section, put it aside, get out the bell flare, spin it on, get out my extenders for the G flats, I put those in, then get everything out, put it all together, and then I can play. Of course, it's not a huge deal. Like woodwind players have to do 10 times as much stuff, especially like double reeds. My wife plays bassoon, and it takes her like 15 minutes to like open the case all the way to playing her instrument. It takes so long. So really only adding like 30 extra seconds of getting your stuff out, and that's not a huge deal. Also, I practiced in the airport, and I used my new quote-unquote silent brass. This is an older one, and it plays so well. I seriously like this thing. It's like playing normally, but it's quiet instead of my best brass mute. Best brass mute. There we go. I can talk. I am sick, but I can talk. This is much better than the best brass mute. And with the screw belt, I can leave the flare off because this actually goes in before the flare. The flare is like right here. I just leave that off, and that makes the horn way about the same and balance pretty much the same as the horn with the flare on. So instead of having a horn with a heavy mute in it that just kind of wants to go this way, I have a horn that feels pretty much the same and responds the same. So that's really neat. I'm very excited about this. Obviously it's huge and takes up space in my luggage. I can't put this in the case, but that's part of the trade-off. So back from vacation, very happy about how that all went, except that it's 107 degrees and I have a cold. So I'll let you guys know what's going on. I have some new happenings. I'm getting a new small horn at some point, and the 60H is being sold, so packing that up probably today to get out of here. And new horn, new small horn coming at some point. Who knows what it'll be. See you guys next time.